good to go.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, everyone.
Can everybody see us?
Welcome.
Please let us know if something is wrong or anything. Hi everybody. Welcome to week 2 of Sustainable Kitchen. I'm totally not looking at the camera. Welcome to week 2 of Sustainable Kitchen with ECM. This week we are going to be talking about the controversial how not to recycle, and we're going to be talking about different ways that you can reduce and reuse and recycle in maybe unconventional ways for this stream. So with that, that's pretty much it. Everybody has their names on, so, and we probably don't need to introduce ourselves. So we're going to jump into the game.
Woo, woo, woo. All right.
Thank you.
So, since this week's theme is about reducing, reusing, and recycling, our game is about reusing in the kitchen. And so, do you guys see it on the screen?
I don't. Right now I'm only seeing you. Hold on, maybe that's on my end.
It's on my screen share right now.
It's mine. I didn't click the shared screen. There you go.
Okay.
Alright, so this week our game is going to be called Use It Again to Win. I thought that was fun. Get a little rhyme in there. But how it's going to work is you're going to see an image of a common item that people use in the kitchen and kind of usually tends to end up in the trash can. And you're going to have about 10 seconds to look at it and about 30 seconds to draw a way to reuse it. And then at the end of that 30 seconds, you're going to show your picture to us. And the two other people, we're going to score it by, you get a point if they say they would use it, and you get no points if they say that that's more hassle than it's worth. Alright. We're not scoring you on your art skills, so don't worry. Does everyone have a pencil and paper? Woo, woo, woo.
I have a pencil and paper. David is like going full out and getting the whiteboard that was in the kitchen with all of our fun drawings on it and trying to erase all of our fun drawings.
Oh, I'm not erasing all of them. I'm just erasing words, which I'm erasing well.
You can erase, there's like a nematode on that thing, and if you guys don't know what a nematode is, it's like this weird, it's like a flatworm that lives in the, there's no need to have that on our whiteboard.
Yeah,
you can erase that for this. Alright, so is everyone ready then?
I think so. Are you ready?
Oh yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, we're ready.
Alright, first item. Oh, sorry, there's a let's get started screen. I always get so excited I forget to put that in there. First item, a plastic bag.
Uh-oh. I'm already experiencing problems. I'll be back in a second with something that actually writes.
You're about halfway through your time.
David is not gonna contribute then. The dry erase marker wasn't working. He just went to go get a new one. So we could delay.
We can give David an extension.
Please, I already have an idea.
Yeah.
I just need to draw a terrible representation of it.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
What?
You've got about
We aren't
15
criticizing my art
seconds.
skills.
I'm not. My art skills aren't any good either.
Alright, is everyone done? Oh, I'm excited to see them. Also, Mary, for some reason I can't see your face in this Skype call, so you're gonna have to also draw me a word picture.
Oh.
Alright.
Wait. What?
Yeah, you're like a pulsing human's welcome heart.
Oh, it's because, okay. Alright, I'll just explain it to you. Because you're not looking at the, okay. I got what you mean. Alright.
Oh. Actually, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Sorry.
Hold on.
You can see my face. I can show it on David's screen actually. I'll just
Oh,
show it on
that'd be
David's screen.
awesome. Let's see it.
Because we're in the same place.
Oh yeah, you're not gonna be able to see it. Okay.
Yeah. That's okay. David, why don't you roll the...
All right.
Get us started.
I took a cheap approach. I
No
mean,
problem.
the shape is obvious. Just make them into shirts.
A plastic bag shirt?
Why not? It'll work in a pinch.
I feel like that'd be really good if you wanted to, like, you know how people do, like, sweat detoxes? Which I don't know how legitimate of science that is. But if you're going on a sweat detox, I feel like a plastic bag shirt would be, like, the thing to wear for it. But I'm gonna vote that that's not worth it.
Yeah, I think I'm
Don't
also
wear a
going.
plastic bag shirt.
I mean, like I said,
Mary,
we'll do
not
it in
your
a
vote
pinch.
too.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you're really in a pinch, but they're also quite translucent. So
Yeah, you might need a couple to be legal.
yeah. Okay, mine. I tried to draw two. You can see them. So with our garden, there's been people stopping by and we keep offering them lettuce. So I put that you can put veggies in them and then you can like give them to other people and then they can deal with them. Just kidding. But and then the classic, like you can use it in a waste bin.
Yeah.
If
That's
you have
what we
them.
do at our apartment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Using a bag as a bag. Brilliant.
I know.
I mean, I like it instead of like getting a new bag, just use the bag that you already have.
All right,
Yeah.
that is absolutely brilliant.
It wasn't nearly as
Okay.
creative, but
I'm pretty sure my idea was not creative as is desperation.
ugh. Okay.
All right, you ready? Boom! A paper bag.
Ooh.
I mean,
Yes. Yes, David.
I can't really draw my idea. But it would
If
make
you
great
need to wait and
wallpaper.
do a word picture, you can do a word picture.
A word picture.
I like that. I like your idea. I think that's a good one.
I really wanted Dylan's plastered all over my wall. But honestly, if I'm being honest, my whiteboard is too big to use effectively, so I'm gonna go grab
Yeah.
something else real quick.
I really gotta like, yeah. Ooh, 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 ooh. I feel like this isn't. Well, okay. I'm gonna stop after this one making references to
To what?
plants, but not.
You're allowed to reference plants. We're on a sustainable kitchen stream. I feel like this is when you do reference plants. I mean, what if there's someone out there who's starting their own garden and
Yeah.
now they know they can use plastic bags with their produce? Alright, you guys have about 15 seconds left. Da 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 da. Alrighty, what do you guys got?
I can go first because it seems like David's
Okay. That's
good.
drawing. So, the technique needs to be changed, but oh, there we go. Okay. One thing that we did this year was to start seeds. We like cut up like big like yard paper bags where people put leaves in them. We cut those
Yeah.
up and we made little pockets out of them and we started seeds. It wasn't the most successful. It got kind of moldy, but like I bet with some changes it could work. And then it's like
How did you-
compostable.
How did you seal the pouches? Was it just folded over or did you staple it or something?
I'm pretty sure we just folded it over.
That's cool. I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
David, what do you with? Also, oh wait, we need to vote. I would use that one.
I also
Woo.
did it as a costume.
I used to do that as a kid. David actually got the big ones for the lawn the other day, and I don't know what made my brain be like, oh, put it over your head. But it was really quite pleasant because, like, it was, like, I haven't been able to do that since I was small enough to fit in a Dylan size bag. And so It was kind of nostalgic to be inside of a paper bag again.
Yeah.
Would recommend.
Yeah, so your paper bag trumps my plastic bag then, I guess. It's clothing. Fun times. Alright, so like I said, wallpaper. Absolutely. Look at that. You can plaster Dylan's all over your wall if you wanted to. Right next to the window.
Horrible.
It's a cheap wallpaper. And it's, easy to replace.
Man,
Either
it's
that or
scary.
you-
Hired as like a maintenance man.
Either that or you
I-
rip it into shreds and you stuff it in stuff as insulation.
I think you could also, like, you could do that and then you could paint, like, a mural or something on it. Like, you could make it, like, prettier.
I've actually seen online people using paper bags. David, you actually reminded me of this is flooring. As like a really cheap alternative to wood. They'll put down plywood and then they'll tear up paper bags and put them down. And then they'll cover it with, I want to say like a sealant, like polyurethane. You'll have to look it up, but I just remember that there are humans that do that.
That's crazy.
So maybe I'll have to give that one to you then, David, because I remember when I saw the flooring one, I was like, man, that's really smart. So I'm sure you could do it on a wall.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
I would have my wall as Dylan's paper bags. Why not? You know? Why not?
Ooh.
Wow.
On to the next one?
Yep, we're on to the next one. Do you guys see it?
Mhm.
Yes. Ooh, glass jars.
We have the glass jar. In my house, this would be from like a marinara container that I use on pasta. I think I have at least 3 of those in my cupboard. Oh no! David, your video cut out. This might make it hard.
Did it? Or was I just not
Yeah.
moving for a while?
No, here's DW now. Like an
Oh.
Arthur.
I
there
didn't
you
notice
go.
anything on the stream, so that's probably good.
That's good.
Yeah. the
Alright, you
stream's
guys are
still-
ready? Dun 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 dun.
Oh, I guess I'm going first. I mean, I took the obvious one, and I just did. You can just make it into a flower vase, which I do all the time, or any
Oh.
plant vase for that matter.
It's that country
Yeah.
chic look.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's very pleasant.
Yeah, I'll go. I mean, we actually have that around here. Well, actually, we'll show you in a bit.
I did too, and I tried to be creative with them. And, so I put that you could do it as a mason bee home, which we've talked about at ECM
Aw.
before.
I like that.
Yeah.
And if you have hollowed out sticks, you could create a home for mason bees, and then it has like the solid back that they like, I guess. And then I also said you could make an instrument out of it. You could just. Ding, 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 ding,
Oh,
ding.
with tunes.
All
Are you-
right, so we're gonna make a new blue mango,
Are
right?
they upside down, and we're banging on them, or are they like the ones where you fill them with water and you have different notes? Da, da, da,
Yeah.
da, da, da.
It could go either way.
I would use all of those ideas. Alright. Oh, okay. Coffee can.
Oh, like a Folgers one, like that.
Yeah, just like that. I tried to find like a nondescript brand coffee can image, but
Folgers is gonna
Wait.
come after us.
yeah, it's
Don't want us tarnishing its coffee brand.
Yeah.
You can hear the AC in the background.
You have the AC on right now?
I don't know if that was the AC or the heater or what was.
Oh, I was gonna say the heater's on here because it's cold.
I heard something clang shut. So
Mm.
I'm ready to go whenever anybody is.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think I
go
am
ahead and
also.
pop it up there.
All right, cool. So we actually did this when I was small. You can actually like take like old containers and you can cut like a hole into it, and they make honestly like small animal enclosures. I mean, if you want things to kind of live in them after a while, you just leave them outside for a while.
Whoa,
You-
what all came and lived in that? Like a
I mean,
like a
it typically ends up
mouse?
being like mice and small rodents and such things. But I mean, we caught a snake in it once. We've got lizards. We caught a turtle in it once because it was just looking for shade.
That's amazing.
Aw,
It's a fun way to catch stuff as a kid, actually.
I would do that. You get my vote on that one.
Totally. I did that. It's a great place to store your beans
Like from your garden?
from the garden or from the store. Like if you, buy
Oh,
in bulk
yeah.
or something.
Good,
Like
good.
just using it as using a container for a container.
Ooh.
I'm not nearly as creative.
Alright, so I think with our final tally, Mary is a few points ahead, but only because David decided that we should all wear plastic bags for clothing,
Yeah.
and that
Well-
wasn't very popular.
When the end of the world happens and there's nothing but plastic bags everywhere because they are everywhere, we'll be wearing them as shirts and you'll be eating humble pie.
I mean,
You know how people like toilet paper dresses, and that was the thing for a while, and then it was duct tape dresses.
Duct tape's going to be a commodity, and if you turn toilet paper into a dress in the end times, I don't know. That's you're going to get expelled.
I watched a video of a girl who made a wedding dress out of adult diapers. So
Oh God!
you can
Well,
do anything.
I just think there's a trend to make like really fancy clothing out of like random common items. So I could actually see this becoming a thing. And I have half a heart to Google it, but I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now.
Yeah.
Alright, so that's the end of our game. But if you remember last week and during our Real Food live stream, we asked for some submissions from the community on what you guys do to reuse stuff in the kitchen, and we wanted to show you what people sent in. Alright, so I'm gonna have Mary explain these first two slides worth. Because
Yes.
this is your roommate.
Yes. Multiple of them are from my house. So yeah, these are from Patty, who is a queen of reusing random things. So on the left, this is her using like a super old paint can. We have lots of paint cans around the house. Oh, that's cute. Sorry. We have lots of like random paint cans that have been cleaned out really well, and they are really good buckets. So that's one thing, and a yogurt container on the right. And then also, she got this really super sharp knife, and I actually like cut myself on it because it was just in the drawer, not badly, but still. So we used like an old Cheerios box, and we made a sleeve for the knife with it.
That's a great idea, actually.
Yeah, I ended up investing in knives, and I ended up buying a cover, and seeing this, I'm like, damn, I should have just made it out of a macaroni box or something.
I know. Yeah,
Give me some money.
yeah.
Alright. Next two are also from Patty.
So, okay, so this one on the left is an old peanut butter jar that now has Goo Gone in it and has had Goo Gone in it. It's actually a little bit sketchy that the lid is like caving in. Like the Goo Gone is definitely doing some very scary chemical reactions to the jar. And then on the right is our toothpaste, which are like tooth tabs that her sister in New Zealand sent us. And I really like them, but they came in a cardboard box, which is obviously a wonderful alternative to shipping something in plastic. but when it's like on the sink, it could get wet. So they're in an old like hand cream jar, hand cream container.
I think you bring up a good point, Mary, though, that reusing's great, but you might be careful just knowing what materials do what. Like, most things will be fine, but maybe not storing something very acidic in something metallic, or something that's prone to, like, bacteria and plastic.
Yeah,
Things like that.
totally. Yeah. I don't. Yeah. This is from our friend Judy Nicholson, who's in the Resiliency Coalition with all of us. So I'm not sure. She's going to have to give me a more in-depth discussion, but she submitted this photo, and she said that she will take scraps of paper, probably like with one side written on it or something, or just general scraps, and she'll use them to make, and with pressed flowers, and then it becomes like really nice, like flower decorated paper. I'm thinking that she maybe like just uses the like ink basically from the flowers, so it's not like pressed flowers on paper, but it's like imprinted on there.
It looks like it has it on there. I don't know if it's in the middle of it. We'll have to ask her, but it looks like she's using like a very common paper recycling technique where you shred the paper, which is what's in that bag behind the blender is shredded paper, and then you put it in the blender with some water and kind of get a pulpy mixture, and then put it on the window screen, which is on the right.
Yeah, that is what that looks like.
Yeah, that looks like what's going on.
So, I thought that was a really fun, like a creative, cute thing to reuse, rather than like
it's
practical.
really nice to send that out as like a card or something.
Yeah, totally.
Like a Mother's Day card or something. It's the holiday that comes to mind. There we go.
Okay, so this is from Ariana, who's my new roommate and will be my roommate until tomorrow. But she donated a lot of different seeds and herbs and spices. Spices was the word I'm looking for primarily. But she has a whole variety of fun containers for spices. That one, I think that's probably like fennel or cumin or something, but it's in an olive oil container. There's one that's in an almond, and I think it's paprika in there. So just generally like more repurposing things. And then the one on the right is like fancy like a, I think, oh, it was a candy. It was candies came in this canvas bag, and so now it's a pen holder.
I can't tell the brand.
I think it's like Tamil or something. I don't think it's
well, it's also like sideways and in a foreign language, so
yeah.
A little difficult. Oh, I think that's the end of it.
Okay. Yay! So that was great that folks submitted them.
Here you go. I'll just show you guys real quickly our one like recycled thing that I have around here, and it's just a big old kombucha jar that our one of our neighbors downstairs, Christian, she had, but we stuck plants in it, so that sucker went wild. So
That's good. Precious. Do you put in? Well, we don't have to talk about that.
no, I have not put anything in there.
It's just water?
Just water.
Wow.
That plant will thrive in anything.
Yeah. So that kind of brings us into the first conversation of how to reuse. different things. So I think that like those were all. Oh, should we go to this one? Okay. They're all really great examples, and like I don't know, I feel like as the game showed, I'm not the most creative, but there's so many different things. I feel like generally thinking about different types of containers is a really simple way, such as particularly like glass containers, metal containers, like cardboard, like everything, but containers are a really easy one, but also thinking about it unconventionally. I feel like it just is a matter of creativity. So, is there other notes of like how to reuse? I feel like it's kind of a...
Keep going.
Yeah.
But throwing it away is kind of like the last resort. Like, if you can recycle it, that's better than throwing it away. If you can reuse it, that's better than recycling it. That kind of thing. So just taking a moment to think about it every time, and maybe getting out of a habit of just throwing things away as the first resort.
Yeah. I think that like initial assessment is really important, to kind of like think about, okay, what do you have, and yeah, like why. I feel like most things are valuable in some regards, like, and it's easy to sorry, I'm blanking. There's like too many screens around, and I keep like looking around, and it's too much. But yeah, no, you have a great point. Yeah, stop making me look at the other screens. It's like too much for my brain. Yeah, so I think if there aren't like any questions or like fun points that people want to bring up, we can talk about reducing, or maybe the whole like R's in general. Are we ready for that talk? Are we ready? Are we ready for the
Let's
talk?
do it. The talk.
The talk.
Hello, Giles.
Let's not bring that
No.
that daytime TV into this. It's just not.
Okay. Well, anyways, so yeah, we wanted to do this stream to kind of discuss like really. I think about it a lot, but the emphasis, like how much we emphasize recycling, and the fact that, oh dear, ambulance. Before we should be recycling, I feel like because it's the last one in the list, we oftentimes like remember that more, and remember it the most, and so we think about recycling more. But before that, as we've discussed, reusing, and before that, it's really a conversation about how to reduce. And I think that a part of the reason that recycling is so popular is because it kind of takes the least amount of effort, and we can feel good about doing it, and we can say like, oh, I recycled it, so it's fine, and it doesn't take you like evaluating like how, like, things that need to change about your lifestyle, or anything that will disrupt the norm of our lives. So, and reusing, I think, is a great medium of like, so you can still buy the thing, and think about maybe one marinara comes in glass and one marinara comes in plastic, and get the one, I don't know any marinara that comes in plastic, but like, the same thing of subtly changing choices, making choices that will result in the more reusable or sustainable thing. So I kind of wanted to do a conversation of like reducing in general, because I think that is like not the starting point, but maybe the like finish point of like, if you can reduce as much as possible, then ultimately like you will have the smallest impact, much smaller in impact than the first two, because at a certain point you're going to die, and then the things that you've reused are still gonna probably go to the landfill eventually. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't reuse them. Then you should use secondhand before you buy new. So if you need something essentially, like blah blah blah. So yeah, talking about like how to reduce things like that. I think the starting thing that you hear, like, it's.
Can I just cut in real quick? Well, the Rev one asks, why does having a smaller impact matter?
Wow, just throwing out that question, like.
Yeah, and to anybody who's watching, if you have a question, post it in chat, and I'll try not to interrupt everyone too much, but I will try and put it in there for you.
That's good. I had my tab open to a different thing. So, I think that having a smaller impact matters because, well, generally, our world is already overpopulated, and particularly, Americans per capita have the largest, like, consume the most materials and have the largest per capita footprint. And anything that we consume results in more carbon being emitted, more plastic in the ocean, more space in the landfills, like everything. And so finding ways to have a smaller impact means ultimately that you are walking lighter on the earth and I guess can contribute your time and energy into positive things rather than giving in, like pushing into the problem more, like and having more, feeding more into the problem. That's my perspective. What's your guys' perspective on it?
I mean, I think you've hit the nail pretty well on the head. Is that I don't know if I can really add to what you said, to be honest. I think it is pretty much right.
Yeah. We spent like my entire ecology class, like it came up with every unit of like how humans going about their quest for consumption like are destroying ecosystems and biodiversity and clean water and air, and how that's in the end just hurting us because all of these natural systems are giving us a lot. Like that's where everything essentially comes from. So, I mean, in terms of that, like monitoring your consumption and trying to limit your impact makes it so that we can continue, like, as humans tomorrow, using wood and like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I took ecology, and I feel like we didn't go as hard on the like stop it humans. I wish that he had been more like aggressive about it.
My professor
I took an ecology
was
class like, oh god, a decade ago. It was a different conversation then.
The textbook and the professor that was really good about tying it back to humans. And it's almost, you can't study the field without seeing that it's such a big overarching issue. It's terrifying.
Yeah. And I think it it goes back to like a lot of our perspective or people's perspective as like I have the right or I don't affect that thing, and we just need to kind of eliminate that perspective, like not eliminate that perspective, but like talk to people more, talk about it more, because that's not the case.
Yeah, if anyone's interested in a good read kind of on different perspectives about how we interact with the natural things around us, Braiding Sweetgrass is a really good one for that. It's kind of a mix of like ecology and indigenous knowledge, but also like indigenous perspective. And in this book it talks a lot about like what if we viewed the things we got from the world as gifts and like what that means, and it's a fun read. It ties back a lot to this.
Yeah, I feel like every chapter of that book like comes back to that sort of topic, and it just, that book is just so many good points. So yeah, with that, one of like the first steps I think to reducing everything or reducing your impact is quite simply like to like take what's in your trash bag open it up, look at what you're throwing away. Like, look at how, like, what you are consuming, evaluating, like, how necessary it is. I've never seen, like, the Marie Kondo, but I assume it's probably the same thing of, like, looking at it as, like, do I need this? Like, why, like, what am I throwing away? What am I consuming? What don't I need? Or what's a good alternative to that? So, I put in, like, we need to think about packaging is probably one of, like, the largest things that we consume as human beings. It's not like, you know, if you're eating something, it's the packaging that's really what's the issue of, like, what we need to eliminate. Packaging of everything in our lives comes in a packaging, which is just crazy. So I put, like, to think about the hierarchies of what packaging could be. Not that hierarchies are always, well, not always my favorite thing in some regards, but so to, like, try to look for glass. If you can't find glass, probably cardboard and glass, especially if you're composting the cardboard can become a really valuable resource, for instance, killing off grass or doing a whole variety of things. So those two, and then also looking at aluminum or metal being the next step of things that we could reuse or recycle easily, and then plastic. So, and then, like, plastic, and then, like, really crappy plastic, like film that you can't reuse. But then on top of all of this is the idea of, like, if we could just eliminate packaging in the first place, which is something that I try to do as much as possible, and I think it is a really, like, once you get in the habit of it, it's really simple, but can be difficult, especially, like, here in Manhattan. People's Grocery used to be a really great resource because they had a huge bulk section where I could go and I could take a big jar, and I could go and I could get a whole bunch of chickpeas, and then not use any plastic in the process, but without them being there, now I've kind of started, like, every time I'm in, like, Kansas City or Wichita, like a big city, Sprouts is a chain grocery store that I think a lot of major cities have, and they also have a really large bulk section. I'm not sure. I used to always use, like, glass jars, and when you use glass jars, you take them to the counter when you first walk in, and they put the tare weight on, and then they can reduce the tare weight out of the price when you go to pay. I'm not sure if Sprouts can do that. I have a feeling that they can, but I have only ever done canvas bags there, which are generally easy because you don't have to usually worry about the tare weight because it's so small. The tare weight, for folks who don't know, is just, like, the weight of the carrier or the packaging thing. Yeah. So,
yeah, you're right.
like, you know, when you have, like, a scale and then you do tare and then la la la, it's the weight that doesn't count towards what you were measuring. So, yeah, just kind of thinking about, like, and on top of that, so there's that of, like, that's usually the concept for, like, dry goods of, like, trying, like, that you would want to do tare weight. The other thing is to think about, like, buying fresh veggies or veggies that don't come in any packaging. That's one of the only things you can get without any packaging is fresh food. So you could do farmer's market, or if it's, like, a bunch of spinach that has a rubber band on it, or a bag of spinach, like, go for that. So if I was in a grocery store, I feel like we could, like, have a walk around and talk about why is this versus this.
I mean, give me a couple hours. I could probably mock
I went to the grocery store with you, Mary, once, and it was quite helpful because I used to always go and I'd take, like, a bell pepper and then I'd, like, put it in the plastic bag and then I'd tie it, and then I'd take, like, an apple and I'd put it in a plastic bag and
Yeah.
I'd tie it. Like, you could just do it without the plastic bag. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I guess I never thought of that. And like, I do it every time and it's no big deal. And I've probably saved like, I don't know, a couple tins of plastic bags in the couple months I've done that.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like you can have like home, like reusable like produce bags that you can do, but you can also just like throw some bananas or whatever, like throw some green peppers in your cart. Like I wash my veggies at home anyways, so like it's not really any different. It's pretty easy. Obviously, like there's a lot of different things. This is mostly just focusing on the kitchen, but yeah, I think that just being like the biggest thing to it is everybody is different, but being mindful of like, okay, I consume a lot of energy drinks. Maybe I could buy one giant energy drink, and then it would be only one can to recycle instead of a bunch. I don't think that those exist, but like,
I
just
feel
an
like I'm getting
example.
called out here.
No one is being called out. I just looked over and saw an energy can. It's like,
Oh, no, that's definitely calling me in. You're right. I would get bigger ones if I could, but you kind of can't.
or learn to make energy drinks at home. That's the ultimate thing. Is like that I didn't really talk about. Is like
Look,
making things from scratch. So you buy a bag of flour instead of a paper bag of flour instead of a plastic bag of bread. Stuff like that. That's also a really thing. But that requires time and blah blah blah.
yeah. I don't know if I could beat the convenience of going and buying a loaf of bread versus spending 4 hours to bake that loaf of bread.
No, I gotcha, but it's just like an idea. It's just, and not necessarily just bread. Of like tortillas are one thing that I've learned how to make tortillas recently, and they're so much more delicious, and it's like not even that hard actually. And it's like, okay, we've eliminated all the plastic just from making it at home. And it wasn't that hard.
Oh yeah.
So things like that. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? I feel like that's it. Like, try to get the higher end packaging when you can. Try to get no packaging when you can. If you have to get plastic, find a way to reuse it. If you can't, I guess recycle it. I guess.
Yeah. I mean,
I think
that
I was
hits-
gonna throw out the point that sometimes higher end packaging, like that glass bottle of ranch compared to a ranch that's in the plastic squeezy bottle, this one's probably more expensive.
Yeah.
The one in the glass bottle. But you might consider that also you're getting a glass bottle, and so you don't necessarily have to go also buy Tupperware. So just something to think about. Obviously, not everyone has infinite money to do everything, and that's fine. And like, definitely don't feel like you have to spend more money than you're able to just to be like a sustainable human being. Like, do what you can, but that's something I kind of use when it's like 30 cents more or something like that.
Yeah, and I just want to expand on that real quickly. And it goes down to the idea that getting 1 million people to do one small thing is a lot more effective than getting 3 or 4 people to do one really big thing. So if everybody
Yeah.
just does a little bit, then we'll have a lot larger change than if we try and convince 5 or 6 people to just stop using plastic altogether.
Yeah.
And I think that also goes down to like the daily thing. Like, instead of buying an electric car, maybe just like, which is like one big thing like once, like make small changes and keep that going.
Yeah, exactly.
It's also easier to build a small habit than a big habit, and it's usually more financially feasible.
Oh, absolutely.
What were you gonna
Another
say, Mary?
question from the Rev one.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to like further that. Like,
Oh,
yeah, I
go for it.
completely think like I feel like I did a bad job of touching on that. Of like, yeah, don't bust the bank on zero waste. I feel like I watch a lot of, or I used to really watch like zero waste videos, and it's usually from like pretty privileged folks. So I think it comes back to like there's a really Instagram kind of way to be like, like, ooh, I have these cool beeswax wrap things, which like that is cool, but there are like cheaper alternatives. Like you could just put a plate on top of a bowl. There we go. Like that's also a reasonable alternative. So like thinking about what you have and what you are able to do is so much more important in the long run than using expensive alternatives and things like that. Like go cheap for sure. And I do think that shopping bulk is cheaper. So yeah. Sorry.
What was that question from the Rev one? Hit us up, David.
It's how can we live using less plastic during the pandemic? Because I don't know. I think the question is just asking. Right now, we're really more focused on getting in and getting out and getting quick things, and plastic kind of makes that easy. So, is there ways to continue doing things safely and easily without using plastic? At least that's what I'm getting out of that question.
Yeah, because I think that as much as we've reduced the worldwide carbon output in these times, like everything is like probably more plastic and more, all sorts of different things in order to be sanitary. It's definitely been more of that. So
one thing is, for the pandemic, my family has actually started buying in bulk so that they don't have to go to the store as much, because my town has a lot of cases right now, so they don't want to go out to Walmart even on a weekly basis. They're trying to cut it down as much as they can. And even though our store doesn't have like that bulk section, if you think about it, if you get like the 20-pound bag of rice, right?
Mm-hmm.
The amount of plastic to the amount of rice you're getting is a lot less than if you get like 21-pound bags of rice. So that one's kind of like a double whammy, like less store for you, less plastic for you.
Ooh.
That's one thing.
Yeah.
No, I agree completely. Yeah, and I think that is probably like the number one answer right now in the way to reduce plastic. Just buy in bulk.
Yeah.
As much as you can.
Yeah.
Now, also, like pre-planning your trips. I get to the grocery store, like going once a week and just thinking, I need ketchup, but buy a large bottle. Something that'll last you 2 months. Ketchup's not going to go bad, and if it does, you've done something very wrong. But yeah, basically, pre-planning and bulk buying, I think, would allow you to use a lot less plastic during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. And I think also one thing that's just like that could be in this time better is like, so maybe you go out to eat regularly in normal post-pandemic times, and then you like take styrofoam. I think that like cooking at home now is a great way to just generally reduce that, because if you're, or like when we're doing takeout, like maybe thinking, okay, cooking at home more instead of doing the takeout from restaurants. But that's of course goes into like time and how much time do people have, and
well, it's kind of funny actually. I feel like people have a lot more time nowadays to cook and to do meal prep and all that, and yet they get takeout because it's easier. So
Talking
it's kind
about
of
meal
an odd
prep
situation.
Thursday night. Live on the channel. Get your ingredient back for free and cook along. Woo! Only that area. Okay, that's it. That's the cameo.
Yeah.
I think like the money thing, it's important to point out that like don't ever force yourself to be like 100% plastic free. Like it is super valuable and amazing if you even just like reuse one yogurt container a week. Like that is beautiful. That is epic. Like if a pandemic happens and that puts you in a situation where plastic free shopping just isn't an option for you, like that's okay. Sometimes it's not always an option, and it's just about doing the best with what you have, and that doesn't have to be perfect to be helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you said it wonderfully. I can definitely speak to, like, in the past, I have really, really pressured myself, like, you know, and like bought like one thing in plastic and like totally beaten myself up over it, and like it is not worth it. It is okay. Like, you are doing a great thing. Like, it's fine. Like, everyone is just doing their own small thing, and that's beautiful and gonna make the world a complete better place. Yeah, and evaluating like your own constraints, and everything. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether that be like physical constraints and like you aren't able to cook 3 meals a day, or financial constraints, or everything. Like, yeah, we all have our own situations.
All right. Do we want to move on to the next segment, Amelia?
Is that the worm bin?
That's the DIY bin, yeah.
Oh, I'm so excited for this, guys. Alrighty. So, with our theme of reducing and reusing and recycling in the kitchen, I was going to talk about kind of an unconventional way to recycle. Or, I guess it's pretty conventional, but it's not necessarily something you automatically think of when someone says recycling. Usually you just think of like the blue bins and you put the glass bottle in. But I'm going to be talking about recycling food scraps. We talked about this a little bit on our last episode, but for the last little bit, we're going to be making a compost system. Hooray!
Oh.
So for this compost system, it's a vermicomposting bin, and the reason I ended up choosing to do this one is it's a compost system that's pretty small. It's actually going to be the size of about a 5-gallon bucket, so it'll fit under the average like family sink, and it's also a compost bin that can go inside and it won't smell. And so if you have an apartment or you don't have a giant sprawling lawn, you can still compost. And so we're going to make one right here on the stream. As a side note, if you are interested in making one of these, ECM has tons of buckets for you to have to make one. Just ask. Alright, so for this project, we're going to grab 2 5-gallon buckets. And they don't have to be brand new. These are actually pretty old ones, but they'll work.
Did you want me to throw this up on the larger screen for you, or?
Yeah, that'd work great.
I can't hear you.
She said, yeah, that would work great.
Okay, awesome. My computer is having problems, everyone. Hey, let's do
Should I continue?
this real quick.
Yes, you're good. Good.
Okay, cool. You could also use like a kitty litter bin. That's actually what the one at ECM is made out of. You just need 2 buckets that nest, and that will have a little gap between their bottoms. And then preferably you want something with a lid, because that helps keep other critters out that you don't necessarily want in your worm bin. Alright. So to make your worm bin, you're going to take one of your buckets. It doesn't matter which one. And you're going to drill some holes in the bottom. And these can be pretty small. They're just going to be used so that water can drain through the system. If water can't drain through your system and you have worms, because the worms are going to go like in this bucket, like there's going to be worms in here, and you're going to put your food scraps in here, and they're just going to eat all the food. And food has a lot of water in it. And so we're going to drill holes in the bottom so that water can kind of drain throughout the system and you don't flood your worms, because that kills them. And so we're going to turn to the bottom. And I think I was going to do maybe 7 little holes around the base of this. I'm just marking it with a Sharpie right now. Make sure that if whatever bins you're using, if there's a dip in the bottom or a ridge, that you put these holes along that, because that's where the water will gather. All right. Those little blue dots are where I'm going to drill the hole. And for this, I was going to use a power drill, and I don't know what size of drill bit this is. It's a small one, but not one of those super tiny ones. It's probably about half the width of my pinky. All right, so that's not too loud, is it?
No, you're good.
I'm not deafening anyone. Okay. Alrighty. So now that we have holes in the bottom of this bucket is going to go inside our other bucket. So that way, when the water drips through this top one that we put the holes in, it'll fall in and be caught by this bottom bucket. And that water that drips through is super nutrient dense. It's really high in nitrogen, and so if you mix it with some water, you have to dilute it so you don't kill your plants. But if you dilute it with water, it's a really awesome fertilizer. Da-da-da-da. The next part is the lid. We're going to drill more holes in this one, and those are going to be so that the worms can breathe. So it's a lot like the holes we did in the bottom, just a few small ones. I would keep these pretty small just because when you're tossing food in there, your worms are going to love them, but so do flies. And if you keep the hole small, most flies can't get in there. I've also seen people put like bits of the old screen door over the air holes, but the one at ECM doesn't have that. It just has small holes, and that seems to work pretty fine. So just kind of put them around the top. Boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. All right. And again, I hope you can see the blue dots. I put about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I put about 8 on there, and I'm gonna drill this like I did the bottom. Alrighty. So now that the lid's done, we're gonna actually start putting the worms in there. And so to make it a better home for them, we're gonna add some bedding. I have some old paper here. It's like written on one side and kind of old. I think it got wet sometime, but that's like perfect. So we're gonna take this old paper and we're gonna kind of tear it into strips. Just kind of like that. If you had like a bag of old shredded paper, that would be perfect for this. Kind of like Judy had with her blender. She could feed those to worms. So this paper is going to be their bedding. It kind of serves a couple of different purposes. It helps absorb some of the moisture so that it's not puddling, and it also is a good source of carbon. If you saw our last episode, we talked about how composting systems require a balance of carbon to nitrogen, and that a lot of green things, like if you put lettuce in there, that would be pretty green. Fruit is pretty green. So a lot of the things that might come out of your kitchen are going to have more nitrogen than carbon. So balancing that out with some paper helps. Also, worms eat it. I didn't know that, but worms will eat paper. Da-da-da. Da-da. I should have pre-shredded like half of this before the stream.
Nah, I think everyone's enjoying the paper ASMR.
You're doing great.
Here. Ooh.
Wow, that was good.
Yeah. In that case, I apologize because this is my last strip. Boom. So I kind of covered the bottom of it. You could probably put a little bit more in, but that's all the paper I could find. And I don't want to get like a new piece of paper just to rip it up and feed it to worms. So now we're ready for the wormies. This is just a bucket of worms I got from a local bait shop. Woo! I hope they're still alive. And they might be dead. It's okay. Oh no, they're in the fridge for some reason, but they're just kind of moving slow right now. I don't know if you can see them. Boom, boom, boom. It's pretty dark. So when you're getting your worms, you're going to want to look for red wranglers. So that's a certain type of worm. And the reason that those are ideal for this kind of system is that those worms are pretty happy with a small amount of soil. And as you can see, this bucket isn't that deep. We only have probably like 2.5 feet worth of soil depth, and that's at the very end. When you're first starting it, you're only going to have like a couple inches. And most worms really hate that. But red wranglers, they're quite okay with only having a really small amount of soil. So that's why they're kind of your go-to. So I'm going to toss these in, dirt and all, and probably scoop out some dirt from outside after I sign off to add to that. Boom, boom, boom. All right. And then you just put the lid on. And so now I have a bucket of worms that I can give food scraps, and they'll munch them up, and it'll decompose into beautiful dirt.
Quick question.
Yes.
If there isn't a bait shop nearby, where else could you get worms, or like can you?
You can order them online. There's actually some websites that if you order them online, they'll probably be higher quality worms. I know that with bait shops, usually you're okay, but sometimes if you get like a red wrangler bucket, you're actually getting kind of like a mixed bag of worms.
Oh.
I haven't actually had a lot of experience with that. I've had a pretty good streak with bait shops, but just something to look out for. You can also probably just dig in your yard and hope for the best. I don't know how to identify whether they're red wranglers or not. You'd have to look that up.
I mean, can you just take any old worm and stick it in there?
You can try. It should work. It might be more picky and die on you, but I don't think there's anything wrong with experimenting a little bit. And you know, if you kill a worm, bury it out back, add it back to the earth. Try again. There's also in Manhattan an actual worm farm who does this composting on like a huge scale. Gallons and gallons. Like they sell the dirt that comes out of it. And so I'm pretty sure he would have some worms for sale. I think that's Hippie Man Worm Farm or something like that.
Yeah, hippie worm farm. I have him on Facebook actually. He posts a bunch of
We
cute
should take a
pictures.
tour of his farm for an episode. That'd be super cool.
That would be super cool.
Future ideas, always good. All right, I'm gonna pop us back into our discussion view.
Alrighty.
Cool beans.
Hello,
yeah.
everybody.
So, according to the Rev 1, they have
Yes.
to be red wranglers, but she says your idea of a grab bag of worms is also fun.
Could be interesting. I guess it depends on your morality of like potentially killing worms. Like,
Oh,
I would, to anyone brave enough to like take on the endeavor of like keeping worms, it's not that hard. But like don't be afraid of messing up. It's part of the learning process. Like don't go around purposely killing worms for the fun of it, but don't be so afraid of failure that you never try.
I think
a good rule of life.
everyone's killed a worm in their life. Like every kid has cut one in half, thinking that it'll grow into 2 worms.
Yeah, and when you garden, you accidentally kill them. Like,
Yeah.
you just take your shovel and you're like, oh my god! Like, no, it is inevitable.
Those poor little guys.
They repopulate pretty quickly. Don't beat yourself up about it.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I think I closed the tab that was talking about like our bullet points of what we were going to talk about. The only other thing was that like we kind of wanted to touch on like why recycling is maybe not the best option, or like why it should be avoided. So there are plenty of articles that you can read about it, but basically prior to 2019, I think about half of America's waste recycling was being shipped over to China, and that's the same case for a lot of other countries, particularly developed countries. And so China last year was like, no, like, we're not doing this anymore, goodbye, which is actually a really good thing, because we were basically sending like disgusting, not clean paper, like plastic films that weren't recyclable, and you can probably look up footage of the recycling facilities where people were working. They were unsafe. Like, it was, I think, a human rights probably issue of like being exposed to that amount of like melting plastic. So now that China has said like, don't send us any more of your plastic, we're seeing a lot of issues because America is now having to deal with its own plastic waste, and it can't do that, and so we're having to make changes. And so a lot of the times when you know, if you're just piling all of your plastic into the recycling bin and taking it out and giving it to Howie's, if it's not 1 or 2, like, it is being landfilled right now. There's no market for that. And so they will still, usually most places will still take all different types of plastic, because if they don't take it all, like, they've said that they're not going to get any plastic because people aren't going to sort their plastic. It's too hard. But I think, like, okay, so if there's no market for recycling, like, it's very obvious, like, we can't keep doing this. We can't, and we also can't keep putting it off on other people across the world to deal with our crap. Like, it's over. Like, we have to learn how to deal with it, and I think a part of that is figuring out how to not be so dependent on plastic, which we have become in the past couple decades of finding life without plastic to be incredibly difficult. So.
Yeah. And I know people hate talking about money when it comes to recycling, but that's what the majority of recycling comes down to. It's a business. And so having to go through the extra steps of cleaning it and removing all that filth and stuff that we just leave on there because we can't be bothered makes it far too costly for companies in America to actually recycle it. And like Mary said, China used to just take it all. They take even the worst, nasty stuff, but they won't anymore. They finally established some standards, and there are some third world countries that are starting to do plastic recycling. It's just they'll take some of our terrible waste, but it's not nearly the quantity that China did.
And it's also still like pretty questionable, like especially when you consider like e-waste is a huge thing of people trying to boil down and get the mercury out of e-waste, and there are places in the world where like their expected, what's that called? Expected age? Life expectancy?
Yeah,
It has been drastically reduced because of the exposure to everything. So maybe we should just like stop doing that. Not to
It's
get
like
all
our modern day Mad Hatter.
feisty or something. What did you say?
I said it's like a modern day Mad Hatter.
I don't know. I feel like it's worse than that, actually. Like this, I think mercury poisoning, which isn't that what the Mad Hatter had? He had mercury poisoning.
Yeah.
I feel like that made him go slightly crazy, but it was on a lot lower levels than these people are getting subjected to. Like they are getting subjected to a myriad of toxic chemicals, and they're just breathing it, and it's coating their lungs, and it's straight killing them. It's not even just turning them crazy.
Yeah. So that's just like one. That's obviously a pretty extreme case, but like it is still a reality of basically like as developed countries and the privileged will always do, like export our nastiness to people that have less opportunities and less privilege, and expecting them to deal with it.
Have a way of passing on the problem than making it better.
Yeah. Yeah. So, oh, and I had one other thing that I was gonna. Oh, the other thing that I was gonna say was the difference with plastic as opposed to glass or metal or cardboard, but cardboard's less so. Is that glass and metal theoretically, when you break them down, you can basically continuously use them, create new products that are of the same quality with them. You can melt down glass and then make something else out of glass. I don't know how that works or whatever, but I think that's how that works, right?
Yeah.
Same with
the idea is there.
Same with metal. That's the case, but because plastic is terrible, and also because of the way that it has been created, like from petroleum, like the fibers. If you are trying to melt down plastic and recycle it, like you can't recycle plastic. You can't take a plastic bottle and recycle it into another plastic bottle. When you are melting it down and going through that process, it gets downgraded into a lower quality plastic. So if you take a plastic bottle, it might get turned into some saran wrap, theoretically, or something like saran wrap. But then you can't recycle that saran wrap. So while if you're consuming everything in glass, you could reuse it or you could recycle it, and it could continuously be in a circular economy going back into the system. That's not the case with plastic. Plastic, its destiny is to be in the landfill regardless of anything. Like it is, consuming plastic leads to a landfill. So
there are actually companies taking plastic right now, and they're able to shred it, and they're able to make it into fibers. But again, that's expensive, and the amount of plastic waste that we're generating, far exceeds their capabilities of turning it into, say, a fiber. So you might find places that say, plastic isn't an issue, but that's just wrong. It still is, even with these new methods.
yeah. So I think that is the biggest thing with plastic. My chat went down, so I can't really see if there are any questions or anything. I think that was the last really thing that we wanted to talk about.
That was our last actual talking point, and nobody's talked in the chat, so we can close up now. We can open it for questions.
Yeah, opening up for questions for just like a minute.
Yeah, we can hang out here for maybe a minute or so and see if anything pops up in the chat before we sign off.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, honestly, the average I guess, trash bin full of recycled materials, it contains a ton of food, which just makes it incredibly nasty to deal with for any garbage company, actually, any recycling company.
Yeah. Well,
So-
it is like food enzymes like create like the bonding can't occur when you're trying to recycle things like the food. I don't know, enzymes. That's what I was told of. Like they inhibit the actual binding agents of plastic.
Yeah, and see, I didn't know that. I just heard that it just creates such a nasty situation that you literally can't pay people to dig through it to separate it
Yeah.
without it just being just disgusting to all hell.
Yeah, and it's terrible. Like, let's not have subject people to that.
So yeah, I mean, we get down. I guess if we go through the 3 R's again, the reduce, reuse, recycle. Obviously, I guess we'll just recap because I'm not seeing any more questions.
Okay.
And obviously, yeah, we want to reduce everything first, use as little as possible if we can. Then what we do use, obviously we want to try and reuse it. And then recycling, which is the easiest but also the worst option, we need to do our best to make sure it's as I guess, a most recyclable state as possible.
Yeah, like thinking through your recycling, not just being like, oh, it's plastic, I'll throw it in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like being aware of what you are recycling is important.
Red One's got another question for us. If we could pick one habit to change from tonight, what would it be?
Of ourselves?
It said if you had to pick for us. I'm not sure if she's asking us three or if...
As in, like, tell people to change what they do?
That's
I
hard.
mean-
I feel like that's something that every person is going to be most effectual if they sit down and do the thing Mary said where you dump out your trash and you kind of make one choice based on that.
Yeah.
Maybe that'd be mine.
Yeah.
The one habit to change is just to take time to pick the habit to change. I know that's not a real answer, but I think it is like a personal matter. Like it depends on what you use and where you're at.
No, I also agree with you completely that, yeah, it's a personal thing. Like, everyone is going to be different.
Take a moment to meditate on it. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll write a meditation for reducing your waste.
Okay. So she did clarify. She said for the viewers, so we're supposed to pick one for the viewers. And I guess we can each do our own, because there will be variety.
Yeah.
But if I just had to choose one, I would say get everyone in the habit of thinking ahead, like pre-planning what your food buy is going to be, not just going to the store with a small list and then going, this will do. I mean, so much of what we do can be avoided if we just think about avoiding it or finding a way to avoid it. So pre-planning, I think, is, what is it? I forget the phrase. I'll have to come back to you on it, but...
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge way to reduce food waste too, and not just plastic waste.
Yeah, I was
No,
also
like,
going to say,
in a week.
just, yeah, thinking through how you can reduce of anything. Yeah, having that. Yeah.
But yeah, I
Just
think
retweet,
I
you know?
also just kind of restated what you said, Amelia, where you go through your trash and you figure out what you need to reduce and all that. I guess mine's just one step behind that, really.
Yeah, and putting that action of looking through your trash into action and doing something about it,
Yeah, absolutely.
making decisions based on it.
Oh, cool. Does anybody else have a question last second before we head out?
Going once, going twice. Think we're out of here, guys.
All right.
Wait. What's our topic for next week? Do we have one yet?
I know that we'll be doing the freezer session.
Ooh, I'm actually really excited for that.
I am as well.
To be in town.
For those of you who don't know, so we do Real Food Live every Thursday, where we cook a meal. And all of May we've been doing Ethiopian food, and we've been setting aside food and freezing it. And so next week I think we'll probably talk about maybe more into like cooking or eating kind of side of things, and yeah, what freezes well, like what you can store long term. So we're going to be taste testing everything and seeing like, oh, did this hold up well? Is this gross after you freeze it for a month? I don't know. So we'll find out.
Oh, I think it'll be great.
I think
it'll all come out good.
Hey man, I'm real
It was
excited to just eat more
going
Ethiopian.
into the freezer, so it's all really good coming out of the freezer.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, I'm not seeing anything else in the chat, so I guess we'll call it a night.
Okay.
Alrighty.
All right. See you, everyone.
Thanks for joining us. Bye.